guys, it's Mandy from Mandyleeplays, and I'm bringing back a series that I haven't done since my last video, and that is the Intro 2. The last one I did is for Intro to Atelier, and I really haven't touched that concept since then, but now I'm reintroducing it back, but this time for the Xenoblade Chronicles series. So you might be wondering why I decided to put this video together. Well, honestly, I love the Xenoblade Chronicles series, so that in of itself is grounds for this video, but I also consider the recently announced Nintendo Switch 2 editions for all the games. And really, if you never got into the franchise, this is the perfect time for you to dive right in. All the games are out at this point, it's just a matter of which one to play first, and all of them are enhanced for the Nintendo Switch 2, with crisp, high-definition visuals, smoother performance, and even more spicy new gameplay mechanics to mess around with. The Switch 2 edition for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 comes out this week, and later on the one for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So in this video, I will take you through the roots of the series, the history, gameplay, story, but I won't go into spoilers, pinky promise, and answer the burning question, which order should you play these games in? If you end up liking this video, hit that like, would appreciate it, and consider subscribing if you're not yet subscribed. Alrighty though, let's start with the history of how these games became a thing. And to get a full picture, we need to travel back to the past and look at the vision of Tetsuya Takahashi, a man with a massive story to tell. Back in 1998, while working at Square, Takahashi directed an incredible ambitious brawling RPG known as Xenogears. It was a narrative deep into giant mechs, lost memories, religion, and complex psychology. It's basically the opposite of Final Fantasy. We have a sci-fi, deep concepts, where Final Fantasy is a fantasy world with more lighthearted concepts. So the original plan was for Xenogears to serve as just the opening chapter of a humongous 6-part epic saga. This was laid out in the Xenogears Perfect Works book, which basically acted as the holy grail for the narrative foundation for the whole Xeno universe. I mean, too bad it's in Japanese though, but we have people who translated it, thank goodness. Unfortunately though, Square had a different roadmap to what this series is supposed to be, and also the cinematic flop that is Final Fantasy The Spirits Within. It had major ripple effects for Square Enix's new future. So in 1999, Takahashi moved from Square alongside colleagues, and then they started their own studio called Monolith Soft. But sadly enough, Takahashi walked out the door, and the legal rights to Xenogears staying firmly behind Square. That's why to this day we don't have a remake of the other games. I often wonder how things would be if, their plans went into fruition when they were with Square instead of having them make their own studio. But hey, it worked out for the better because we have the giant Monolith Soft. Now, since the sequel was dead in the water, Monolith Soft teamed up with Bandai Namco to craft a spiritual successor that still carried that ambitious DNA. A massive sci-fi journey known as Xenosaga. You could tell they like the word Xeno a lot. Now, this series was intended to be a epic 6-part shebang. So basically with Xenosaga, it was doing well, but then episode 2 kind of flopped, so then they kind of had to consolidate his massive 6-part vision into a trilogy. And all this partnership between Monolith and Namco was starting to lose its spark. But then, absolutely out of nowhere, Nintendo hits the scene. So basically Nintendo swooped in and snagged a majority stake in the studio, officially welcoming them in the first party family. And that's where they are today. So right around this time, Takahashi had this wild concept brewing, a world where opposite civilizations thrive on the bodies of 2 gigantic titans, frozen in mid-clash. And so, Xenoblade Chronicles was born, and it made its debut in 2010, to Japan only. However, thanks to the tireless crusaders of Operation Rainfall, I'm not kidding, that's what it's called. They really fought to make this game worldwide. There's a bit more history to that, but that's the important part. Now for the stories of the games. I'm not gonna really go into depth about each of them, because we'll be here forever. But I will try to give you a taste of what the games are about. The narrative in Xenoblade Chronicles games are just fantastic. Even my least favorite, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, has a very good story. Great cinema in a video game. And it really rewards rewards the player for paying attention to the little details across dozens, if not hundreds of hours of playtime. I'm going to lay out the general vibes and narrative setups to get hyped for. And of course, I will pinky promise this portion will be spoiler free. So first, let's start with the first game, Xenoblade Chronicles. This kicks off on the Bionis, a massive petrified god that serves as the entire continent in this big-sized ecosystem. You got lush forest, water, whole civilizations tucked into the crevices. This concept is really cool because essentially you're thriving off of this dead god. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows, of course, because the people of the Bionis live in constant dread of the Mechonis, which is basically the other huge titan on the other side. So the Mechonis is like the opposite of the Bionis. The people who live on that titan are more like machines than men, and they love to go to the Bionis to snatch up things from the organic world. And our point of view character, our protagonist Shulk, is basically a nerdy introverted researcher from a small colony who would much rather tinker with gadgets than swing a sword. So when we first meet Shulk, he is tinkering with none other than the Monado. Now the Monado is a super important sword that does a lot of things, but one of its main purposes is to control the time around it. And it's not only a cool plot narrative, it actually affects the gameplay as well. And from there, the story and adventures go on. And Xenoblade Chronicles is my favorite entry in this series, mainly because I like Shulk, I like the Monado and its concepts, and the whole living on a titan in the middle of nowhere is such a cool concept. Now for Xenoblade Chronicles 2, like I said before, it's not my favorite entry in the series, but it's still good. So instead of 2 titans in the middle of an ocean, now there's multiple titans up in the sky. So you start off in the world of Altras. Humanity clings to life on the backs of massive titans that drift through the sea ocean. Now enters Rex, a spunky young salvager who spends his days diving into the misty depths to recover ancient relics, although one high-stakes mission goes sideways fast, ending with Rex taking a sword through the heart from a mysterious antagonist. But wait, there's more game to play, so obviously he's not dead. He is saved by the mysterious object that houses Pyra, who gives up half of her life to revive Rex. Pyra is what the game calls a blade. The best way to describe what a blade is they're basically a personified weapon, and when you use blades, you are called a driver. There's a ton of different drivers. You got the common ones, the legendary ones, Cosmo.
Cosmos. Obey strategical multiple operation systems. All systems operational. Are you my master?
Funny enough, I got Cosmo really early in the game, and she's one of the rarest blades. But anyways, this is another aspect that is integral to not only the story, but the gameplay. Now, Pyra herself wants to go through this journey to get up the world tree to meet the architect, and Rex is eager to help her, and the plot really thickens as you progress. Also, this game has the first DLC expansion, and one of my favorite expansions to boot, and that is Torna the Golden Country. I'm not going to reveal much on what the plot is about, but it plays a big role in telling the events that led up to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and you should definitely play it after Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Yes, I know it's a prequel, but you kind of need to know the whole mechanics of the game to enjoy it, so you should play Xenoblade Chronicles 2 first. So next is Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and one of the saddest stories of the bunch. This is where the entire Sega reaches its fever pitch, both in terms of plot and literal geography. This story weaves together the fractured world of Eonos. In this setting, there are 2 massive military powers, Keves Genesis and Angus, who have been trapped in a cycle of never-ending ritualized combat for as long as any of the soldiers could remember. And on top of all that, everyone has a really short lifespan, which is really sad because they're just fighting all the time. So it's not like they're living the best life in this short lifespan. No, they're too busy fighting all the time. Until our protagonist Noah hits the scene. Another one of my favorite protags. He's kind of a mix of Rex and Shoal. Now Noah is what you call a offseer in this world, where he honors the dead with his flute. So he plays a really nice song, and all your life particles just drift away. And our other protagonist, Mio, is from the rival group. Enemies to friends has to be one of my favorite stuff. So him and his friends find a partnership with the other side, and they grow together to go on this epic journey. And with this title came another DLC called Future Redeemed, which is basically the all-star of the Xenoblade Chronicles series, and you definitely should play that one last. Now that we went through all 3 games, we have to address the elephant in the room. And that is, where the heck does Xenoblade Chronicle X fit into this? Well, it's different from the other 3. Xenoblade Chronicles X was actually released after Xenoblade Chronicles 1 during the Wii U era, and recently it got re-released for the Nintendo Switch and the Switch 2. Now, for the longest time, a lot of fans were wondering, where the heck does this take place timeline-wise? So for this, the most accepted theory is that Xenoblade Chronicles X is in a separate universe than the other games, because a lot of the story and its concepts feel more at home with Xenogears and Xenosaga than with Xeno Chronicles. So having it in a separate universe makes sense. So let's talk about Xenoblade Chronicles X, which is honestly such a good game. A lot of people don't like it because it feels different from the trilogy, and while I do agree that it's different, I still think that if you enjoy it for its own merits, it's actually a really cool sci-fi adventure. Anyways though, X opens up with a bang. Right off the bat, you're witnessing a galactic war going on, and it's looking very messy for the people on Earth. So you, the protagonist, and a handful of different humans go on this arc to flee the situation and make sure humans do not go extinct. And this ship is iconically named the White Whale. And then skip a bunch of years, I don't really know myself, but the colony ship ends up in a very nice planet called Mira. So nice that they decide to make it their home. Now in this game you actually get to personalize your protagonist, which is pretty cool. So you wake up and you're enlisted to this organization called Blade. So even though Mira looks a lot like Earth, it is actually a very dangerous place. And of course, you're not the first sentient people to come across Mira. There's actually other alien life. One of them is your enemy. Now the story is not as pronounced, mostly because a lot of the story has to do with side quests, but it's still a really good entry in the series, and it's a nice different experience from the trilogy games. Now let's talk about the gameplay. Again, I won't get too nitty gritty into the details for each game, but I will highlight the fun stuff. So the gameplay of these games are not what you would call a traditional JRPG experience. It doesn't quite fit into the old school turn-based mechanic, and it's not a pure action brawler either. Instead, it sits at a very specific sweet spot. At its heart, the Xenoblade Chronicles games is a action RPG with combat clearly inspired by MMORPGs. So forget the old school random encounters. All the enemies are on the map. You'll usually grab the reins of whatever specific protagonist you're playing as. Fights unfold in real time, where just getting close to a baddie kicks off an automatic swing. Like I said, it's a lot like an MMO, but the real secret sauce lies in the strategic use of arts. And pro tip, if you're kind of finding it hard to win a battle, it's all about your positioning. Depending on the different arts, a ton of them get a massive boost if you hit the enemy in the right spot. You have to constantly circle and reposition rather than just standing there like a statue. And in each of the games, it relies heavily on cooldown timers and also managing Argo. And in each of the games, it lets you unleash a devastating, perfectly synchronized chain attack, which are always so good to see. I love it. The gameplay is kind of weird when you first start. It takes a lot of getting used to, but honestly, it is so fun. But within each of these games, there are unique mechanics. Like for the original Xenoblade Chronicles, it centers around the Monado and what it could do, especially when it comes to time. So in the heat of the battle, Shulk will sometimes get visions of the future, which for the gameplay warns you about a lethal blow headed your way. It is a super cool mechanic, which ties back into the themes of the game. And since it's the starting line for the whole franchise, the combat feels the most traditional out of the three, and it's very simple. And I don't mean simple in a bad way. But things get wild once you jump into Xenoblade Chronicles X. In my opinion, this entry has the most unique gameplay mechanics out of the bunch, mostly thanks to the shells. The shells are basically massive mechs, which you could decorate and buy different ones. It's very fun. I love the mechs so much, and fighting in them was just like the best. Then you have the overdrive system. When that is active, the cooldown for your arts goes way faster, so you can unleash more attacks. Now Xenoblade Chronicle 2 is where the gameplay takes a massive turn. First you have your sentient weapons, which you could summon through a gacha style core crystal system. Yeah, a gacha style one. But this is in-game, you don't have to put your own money into it, thank god. Each blade has a different elemental affinity, and those all-important arts. You're basically juggling break, topple, launch, and smash effects on top of your blade combos. Now the way that the blades are and all the different things they could do makes Xenoblade Chronicle 2 the most robust gameplay-wise than the other games, and it's arguably the most complex. But 2 still has the core gameplay like the cooldown arts, party system, all that stuff. Funny enough, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was my first entry into the series, and I remember the gameplay being just crazy when I first started. I was like, what the heck am I supposed to do? I'm like 15 hours in and I'm still getting tutorials. It was just a lot. But once you get the hang of it, it is really good. And with the new Switch 2 edition, you could play it in 60 FPS, which is awesome because I played it on my Switch when I first started and it ran really wonky. Now lastly, we have Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which is kind of a mix-up of Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Anyways though, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 does push the envelope further in the series, which has you using the interlink mechanic, and this allows the duo to fuse into a single massive Ouroboros mech. I mean, it's not called a mech, but it's kind of a mech to me. But in this game, your party members do play a bigger role. This game introduces a deep class system, where every member of your party can learn and freely swap between various combat roles. Whether you're running as a sword fighter, Zephyr, or a medic gunner, each role brings a unique art that allows for customization in your party, which is a big game changer because previously your party members only did the job that they were assigned to, but in 3 you could customize each character, which is really cute. Now to end this off, we're gonna go over what order you should play these games. So in all honesty, you could technically jump into any of the games that you want. They have their own insulated stories, and I'm not here to gatekeep anybody on how they should play. At the end of the day, just pick the order that fits you. I'm just giving you the order that has the most satisfying feel to it, and the order that doesn't leave you completely confused. Or like Patrick Star said, who are these people? Starting off, the first one you should start is the original Xenoblade Chronicle game, followed by its DLC, Future Connected, and then move on to Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And once you're done with that, it is important that you play the prequel, Torn at the Golden Country. Next up is Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and a lot of the story stuff will fall into place. Seriously, I do not recommend you play Xenoblade Chronicles 3 first. Don't do that. You will be so confused, and you will spoil yourself for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and the original Xenoblade Chronicles. I really think you should leave Xenoblade Chronicles 3 for last. Thank me later. Now with Xenoblade Chronicles X, you could basically play it whenever you want. It doesn't really have ties to the trilogy, so yeah, you could just play it when you feel like it. So that is your order on how you should enjoy this fantastic, wonderful series. You should definitely play these games slowly, don't just rush through them. Taking it easy is the best way to enjoy these games. And then we have Xenoblade Genesis next year. This is the perfect time to get into the series. So that is the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, hit that like and consider subscribing, would appreciate it. And also, let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions games. I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your day, and as always, play a good game. Peace, peace.